Hey guys, Jenny here and welcome back to my channel. If you're a fan of cinnamon roll, cinnabon, or any cinnamon flavor, today's video is for you. I'm making some homemade cinnamon roll and this is actually the first bread that I have ever made. So I'm super excited to show you how it's done. So if you want to know how to make this, just stick around and I'll show you how it's done. Now let's get into the video. So we are basically just going to combine all the ingredients together. I always start off with the bread flour, sugar, and then salt. And then I give it a quick stir to disperse the salt and the sugar. And then I add in the instant yeast. I'm using instant yeast so I don't have to activate that separately with the warm liquids like the active yeast. Those two can be used interchangeably, but there's a slight difference with the weight and the process. So just Google active yeast versus instant yeast to know more. Then I just give it a quick stir, like so. Also, please keep in mind that yeast and salt aren't too friendly with each other, so avoid directly putting the yeast with the salt. And then I add in the other ingredients, which are the melted butter, lukewarm milk, 1 egg plus 1 yolk. The warm milk and the slightly warm butter helps activate the yeast, but we don't want the liquids very hot. They should be slightly warm to the touch, but you should not feel any slight burn when you touch it. About 110 degrees Fahrenheit or 43 degrees Celsius if you want to know specifically what I'm saying. Now I'm going to start mixing this using my stand mixer with the dough hook attachment for about 8 minutes on medium speed. If you don't have a stand mixer, you can always use your hands and knead the dough for about 10 minutes. After a while, it will form a ball and the dough will be slightly sticky. So now I'm just taking the hook attachment and will transfer this dough in another bowl. It should be large enough to give room for the dough to rise. Also, make sure to oil the bowl before transferring the dough so it doesn't stick too much. And then cover the bowl with a cling wrap and a tea towel and keep this in a warm place. I normally just keep it on the counter because our kitchen is always hot. We're going to leave this dough to rise for about an hour to an hour and a half or until the dough doubles in size. So while the dough is cozy on the counter, let's prepare our cinnamon sugar. So for the cinnamon sugar, just combine your light brown sugar and cinnamon and just stir to combine. And that's basically it. I used about 3 tablespoons of cinnamon powder, but you can always adjust the amount. An hour and a half later, this is what the dough looks like. So just remove the cling wrap and punch it down to deflate, and it also helps redistribute the yeast. And then we're going to transfer this dough on a well-floured surface. I actually forgot to flour the surface, but I did that after a while when I realized. Also, make sure to flour your rolling pin and just roll this dough to about 15 by 10 inch rectangle. If you find that you roll it a little bigger, that's fine. Now, this is about the size that we are aiming for. And I have about 60 grams of softened butter and I will spread that on this dough using my offset spatula. You don't want the butter too hard because then you'll have a hard time spreading it, but you don't want the butter melted either. So make sure to keep the butter to room temperature about 20 minutes before you do this. Once we have spread all the butter, we're going to sprinkle all of our cinnamon sugar evenly on top. Yes, I know that's a lot of sugar, but this is a dessert that you don't eat every day, so don't feel too guilty about it. At this point, we're now going to roll this dough onto itself. Roll from the 15-inch side of the dough and just do it nice and slow. Once you have rolled the dough, cut it into 9 even pieces. That's about 1.5 inches each. To be honest, I didn't do a very good job cutting them evenly, so you'll find that there are smaller pieces later, but just try to make it as evenly as possible. I'm using a serrated knife to cut the dough. Just try not to cut too aggressively to avoid deflating or deforming the dough. Using an unflavored dental floss to cut through the dough also works, so whichever is available for you, do it. Use it. Now that I have 9 pieces of rolls, I'm going to place them into a parchment lined baking pan. Ideally, use a 9-inch square tin or round cake tin, but since I don't have a square pan that size, I'm just going to use a slightly bigger pan. It's going to have excess space on one side since it's quite big, but it works fine. Just try not to cram the pieces too close together so the dough have some space to rise. And then cover this pan using a cling wrap again, and then we're going to leave it to rise for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, this is what it's going to look like. It's definitely bigger now and it's ready to be baked in a 350 degrees Fahrenheit preheated oven for about 25 minutes. Of course, don't forget to remove the cling wrap before putting this in the oven. I'm just gently moving one row closer to one side because there's a lot of space between them. But if you're using a 9-inch pan, you'll find that they all look perfectly. If I'm going to be honest, I do have a 9-inch round pan. I just want them to look square for the video, so I use this pan. But you don't really care that much, do you? Anyway, now let's move on to making the frosting while we are baking the cinnamon rolls. So in this bowl, I have some cream cheese and butter, and I'm just going to beat them to combine. And then I'm going to add some powdered sugar and just continue beating until it's one very creamy, very delicious frosting like so. Just some tip when making the frosting, make sure that you sift your powdered sugar before incorporating it with the butter and the cream cheese to avoid any lumps. Also, you may have to use your spatula to scrape down the sides and make sure that everything is well combined. Okay? And we are down to the last step of this bread making. The cinnamon rolls just came out of the oven. Give it about 5 minutes to cool down, and then generously spread your cream cheese frosting on top. I suggest eating this on the day that you make it, but you can still eat this the day after. I don't suggest eating it after day 2 because the quality is just not the same. And that's it, guys. I hope you like this video, and if you do, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Make sure to hit that notification bell below so you don't miss out on any of my uploads. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on my next video. Bye-bye!